Let's go over how to make a character from an already created bitmap. So here is some icons that I've downloaded from FlashKit. I'm going to go ahead and select one of these. I'm going to copy her, and then I'm going to make a new flaw file so that I can edit her in there. I'm going to go ahead and paste her. And now I'd like to convert her to a movie clip symbol. So I'm going to right click or F8 her and say convert to symbol. And I'm going to call her let's call her the girl object. I'll press OK. Now I want to edit this girl object on her own timeline, so I'm going to double click her. Now I know I'm inside of the girl object because I can see it up here. I can look at her properties. She's a graphic. Now I'm going to take her and I'm going to break her up. So I'm going to do a Control B or Command B on a Mac. And notice now she's a bunch of little dots. I can see that certain colors have broken up into certain parts. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on that. Control plus or Command plus. Now I'd like to take her arm so that I can move her arm separate from the rest of her body. So I'm going to use the lasso tool. With the lasso tool, I can zoom in and I can select with my mouse certain pixels. So now I just got a hold of her arm. I'm going to Command X or Control X that arm. I'm going to make a new layer and I'm going to paste that arm onto that layer. I'm going to Control G and group that arm together. And then I'm going to take that arm and I'll put it back where it should go. Now I'd like to animate this arm. So in order to animate something, it has to be a movie clip object. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to convert to symbol, and I'm going to make her that movie clip the arm object. Now I'd like to rotate this arm, and the rotation point should be here. My rotation point right now, as you can see, if I were to rotate this arm, it's around that center dot, which I don't want. So I'm going to use my free transform tool. I'm going to grab that center dot. I know I have the center dot when the arrow has a center dot symbol to the right of it. I'm going to click, I'm going to drag that center dot down to where I'd like the rotation to happen. So right about here. Now when I rotate the arm, it's around that center of reference. Okay, let me undo that. Now I'm going to right click, I'm going to create a motion tween. As you can see, the motion tweens up to 24 frames. I can click on this frame below it, and if I want this frame to extend, I can say insert frame. That way her body is also shown for 24 frames. Now I'd like her arm to end up at this same spot, so I'm going to add a keyframe here at the end so it can save that her arm is in this exact spot. So I'm going to right click and say insert keyframe. Alright, now about this point I want her arm to be pointed downward, about halfway through. So now I'm going to rotate her arm. Inserts a keyframe for me. And notice because I have the other keyframe, it rotates the arm back. Now the only problem is, as you can see, is that her arm detaches from her body, whereas it should stretch out from her body. So to correct this problem of her arm detaching from her body, we need to fix up this group here. So we're going to double click on our arm movie clip. Notice now we've gotten into the group. We'll double click on the group, and now we got into our bitmap objects. So what I'd like to do is take my lasso tool and lasso part of this arm. I'm then going to copy the arm, Control C or Command C, and then Control C or Command V to paste the arm. I'm then going to take that bit of arm, and I'm going to use my arrow keys, and I'm going to place that bit of arm onto her arm. So I'm extending her arm. I'm going to Control V again, grab another piece of arm and line it up. I might have to zoom in to get it exactly right. So I could use my eraser tool and I could erase some of this. And I could use my pen tool to kind of fix things up a little bit. Remember, you could undo if you do something incorrect. Maybe not perfect, but good enough. I'm going to zoom out. Now her arm's extended. I'm going to go back to the girl. Now I'd like her arm so that it doesn't look so awkward. It needs to be behind the girl. So I'll drag that layer. I'm clicking on that layer. I'm dragging it down behind the first layer. And now her arm looks a little bit more realistic. I now want to add another layer. I can start to name these layers. So this could be my arm layer. This could be my girl layer. This is going to be my labels layer. And this could be my actions layer. So in your labels layer, you want your movie clip to stop and hold on frame 1, and when it gets to frame 2, you want it to play, and then it goes back to frame 1 and it stops and it holds. So you'll need to label frame 2 so that you can tell your code where to go. So the first things you do is you right click and you insert a keyframe, and you come over here to properties and you name that frame. So we'll name it the wave. She's doing the wave. On your first frame, you'll want to add an action of stop. So that way your movie clip will stop and hold on frame 1 until you tell it to go to frame 2. Now we can go back to scene 1. We'll use our selection tool to select our girl, and we'll copy her. Control C or Command V or Command C. Then we'll go over to our Pong flaw. We'll go back to scene 1, go to our library, go to our enemy, and we'll double click on our enemy. We're then going to click on our enemy object and delete him. Notice that we're inside of our enemy object when we're doing this. Then we're going to paste our girl movie clip. We're going to make her a little bit smaller. And then very importantly, we're going to name this instance of our girl movie clip. And we're going to name her girl. Notice that she's an instance of a girl movie clip. So now our enemy has a girl object inside of it that we named girl. Alright, now we're going to go back to our pong.as file. And inside of our AS file, we're going to come up here, actually down here, to where if the ball hit our enemy object. If the ball hits our enemy object, we now want our enemy to call his girl self and tell her to go to and play the wave. So we'll save that file, we'll run that file. There's our little girl. She's moving around, she's She's going to try to catch the ball. And she does the wave. Notice that every time she hits the ball, she does her little wave. Okay, we need to make the girl a little bit bigger. So when you want to edit that enemy object, if you wanted to make her a little bit larger, you'd go into your Pong flaw, go into your enemy, where you're editing your enemy, click on her, use your free transform tool, hold the shift key to edit the height and the width proportionally, and you can make her a little bit bigger. Go ahead and test your movie clip now. So here's our cat. Our cat hits the ball. Our enemy is too slow. So we might have to change her code to be a little bit faster. So when you need to change the code to make her a little bit faster, go back to your pong.as file and look for your code where you made your enemy object move, which was your AI movement. And multiplying by 6 didn't give us enough large numbers, so we're going to have to multiply by 5 and then maybe add 1. I'll try out that. Move our range up a little bit so it won't be so low. And we'll go ahead and see how she moves along. And every time she hits the ball, she does her little wave.